We did it. We're doing it again. We're close to right on time. Waiting for a few seconds. Just got to get everybody brought into the session. Okay, so we're going to give everybody just another second longer. I see the counts coming up. People count, head count. Everyone's figuring out this cool thing called Air Meet, and we're learning it together. So good stuff. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next session. All right, and okay, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get going then, Shruti. Thanks so much for the patience. Hello again, everyone. We are here and joined by Shruti Kapoor, CEO of Wingman. She is the founder as well. Little side note, she loves Iron Man, I hear. Is that right? You want everyone to
Absolutely.
have their own Jarvis? I
Why
would love
not?
it. Why not is exactly right. I would love to have a Jarvis myself. And then just by way of introduction, a little more background on Shruti here. She's worked across life sciences, research, investment banking, technology investing, commercialization, product development, and fintech. Right, all of that before plunging into entrepreneurship and doing Wingman. But she's not all business outside of work. She enjoys podcasts. You like board games too, right? What's your favorite board game?
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. Oh, I love that game. I've played it. I've actually played it. My aunt is a huge gamer. We do it around the holidays, and we play Puerto Rico. Where
Wow.
you're building up the your little area, right? Yeah. So y'all should check that out. Great gift idea for the holidays that are coming up. Puerto Rico board game. Um,
Absolutely.
and you're joined by your own personal wingman, your 5-year-old son, right? Who likes to fly a lot of paper airplanes.
Yeah, he does. And thankfully, he's not joining me on this call, but he loves joining me on calls when he can.
Yeah, so if we see a paper airplane fly across the room, that's him saying hello.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that and no further ado, I'll turn it over to you. Today we're talking about customer objections, opportunities, not obstacles, right? And again, as a reminder, everyone, feel free to please do use the chat Q&A as well for questions, and enjoy. Shruti, it's all you.
Thanks so much, David. And yeah, I would love to hear from everybody who's here today. What's their favorite go-to resource for learning more about sales? Whether that's a podcast, a book, a website. Would love to see how I could get better at it myself. So yeah, excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Outplay team. And thanks for the lovely introduction, David. So I'll just get started. I know David's given an introduction. What I would love, David, is if you could also maybe post a poll just around how people view sales objections. I know, it used to freak me out when I was just getting started in sales. I used to look at it, and I've heard so many salespeople say this, right? Like when they would hear an objection, they would be like, yeah, this one's not going to close. And then they would just kind of move on to the next deal in the pipeline. So yeah, I would love to hear how people perceive objections, and let's break down some of those with stats and analysis to see how we could all get better at it. Thanks, Shreyas. Okay, let's get the party started. Waiting to hear from all of you. Yeah, and I think as we're all waiting for the poll results, would absolutely love to hear from everybody here, where you're joining from and what is your favorite go-to sales resource. Okay, so here we have the results of the poll. Um, you know, I'm not surprised that a lot of people here got the answer right. You know, sales objections are actually your friends if you know how to handle them well. And yeah, you know, a lot of people here recognize that, right? Your win rate goes up when you encounter a sales objection. So let's dive right into how to make the most of these objections and how to not be scared of them. Rahul, I think I would need you to take off the poll results so I could continue presenting. Perfect. So before I dive into the data, let me just tell you a little bit about where this is coming from, and you know exactly what is the data that you're looking at. So Wingman is a conversation intelligence tool that helps analyze sales conversations across video conferencing tools, dialers, and also your emails. So based on analysis of all of those interactions and correlating that with what is the final deal outcomes based on you know CRM information, we've collated a bunch of interesting results, and I'm going to be presenting a few of those relevant to sales objections. So here we go. This is based on 2 million minutes of sales calls. And yeah, at the end, I'll be sharing, you know, more resources on where you could go and find analytics on, you know, other topics like qualifying questions, etc., as well as an exclusive offer that we've put together especially for Accelerate. So yeah, the first thing here, objections means seriousness, right? So very often what happens is you have this fantastic sales call. At the end of the call, you feel pretty good about yourself, but you never hear back from the customer. And what's going on there, right? What's happening is that you know the prospect was just being polite. They heard everything that you had to say. Maybe they asked a couple of polite questions, but that's about it. You know, somewhere in the back of their mind, they might have been thinking about things like, hey, you know, do I really need a tool like this? Or maybe they were wondering how they would be able to get budget approvals internally for it, right? But they never voiced any of that. And part of the reason was that maybe you didn't earn enough of that trust for them to kind of take you into confidence and tell you some of their concerns. And that's kind of where we lose deals very often. So, you know, the next time you hear a customer actually pose an objection, you know, it's a sign of them trusting you, taking you into confidence, and also about them being serious about the purchase process. Hey, Tom, good to see you here. So yeah, what we saw, and I think what a lot of people predicted here was that your win rate actually goes up when there is a sales objection. The first time I encountered this data, it was really, really revealing. We were working with a customer. They had been having fantastic conversations and they were not sure, while they had great inbound leads, why they were not able to convert a lot of them. And then we went and looked at you know, the conversion rate for deals where they had customer objections and conversion rates for deals where they didn't have customer objections. And the difference was stark, right? In their case, it was actually double. And that's kind of what got us digging further into this. And so what we've done today is we've actually gone and looked at different types of objections and how each of those impact either your win rates or your loss rates. So let's get into it. So the second thing that I wanted to share around objections was objections related to budget, right? So this is actually a really tricky one. What happens when you have an objection around budget is that your loss rate goes up significantly. While your win rate actually, you know, doesn't change dramatically. What this means is that when somebody comes in and mentions that, you know, either they don't have budget or, you know, something is too expensive or out of budget, they're less likely to be sitting on the fence. They're more likely to actually come back and give you a yes or no answer. And very often you'll get a no answer much more quickly in those instances. Which, all things considered, is a good thing, because then you can go and focus on deals where you have a better chance of winning. So I would say that it's useful to try and bring out this objection early, even if it means that it increases your loss rate, because at least in that case, you can eliminate deals that don't make, they're not going to make it to the finish line. So the third thing here really is around decision makers. So decision makers, all of us know are important people. We should go and engage with them. But the first thing that we need to do is, of course, during our qualification process, understand who is the decision maker. And, it's surprising how often that doesn't happen. Because especially in an inbound situation, when a lead is coming in, you assume that the person who has, reached out is in some way involved in the decision. But very often they might not be the ultimate decision maker. And so what's important is to make sure that you discuss who's going to be the decision maker early in the process. And if you hear an objection around the fact that the person you're speaking to is not the decision maker, it's actually useful, because then you can dig further and find out who's the decision maker, what's a good way to engage with them, how often would they, like to engage in the in the buying process. And once you have all of that is when you can actually go in and make a strategic plan around that sale. Make sure you can DM the DM. And one of the things that we love to do is, today, when we analyze our own deals, we are very, very focused on making sure that we know which of the deals are being single-threaded and which of the deals maybe don't have, a senior person or a decision maker involved as part of that conversation. So, that's one thing that you should all go back and look at in your own deals before the holiday season, and make sure you're better prepared for the next round. When the pandemic started last year, we heard a lot of people saying that they were not able to close deals, and very often the reason that they cited was budget. Right? Everybody was like, budgets are frozen. Nobody is willing to spend money on new technologies or new services or whatever it is. But when we looked at that data, what was surprising was that the budget wasn't the real objection. The real objection was timing. And even across, outside of the pandemic situation, timing is an important objection. What happens very often is that, especially if you're used to a short sales cycle, right? So, like in our case, the sales cycle is typically around 4 weeks. What happens is that when a salesperson hears that the timing that the buyer is looking to make the decision is maybe 3 months, 6 months, they kind of just dismiss the deal and mark it as, closed, lost. And that is the reason why so many times when people hear a timing-based objection, they actually think that they're not going to be able to win that deal. But if we look at the data, we see that the win rates actually increase when people come back and mention something around timing. And what this could mean is that when I mention that my timing is 3 months out or 6 months out, that means that I've already thought about this purchase. It is already part of a process. Maybe I have an implementation program going on into which I want this to fit in. But what I need from the salesperson really is persistence and making sure that they're staying in touch, adding value without being annoying. And I think this is something that a lot of salespeople overlook, because everybody is working towards their quota for that month. And sales is a long game, just as Brandon was saying earlier today. And this is really the fifth and last secret stat on sales objections, which is that your biggest competitor or what you're going to lose deals to isn't who you think it is, right? And I think when anybody sees this, you know what I'm talking about. Most deals are actually lost to status quo. Um, Again, what is really important is to be able to bring that out. Recently, I read somewhere, and this really, rung true with me, was that you can actually take out B and T from your band qualification if you are speaking to the person with authority, and if they have a need for something, you should eventually be able to close a deal with them. And I think when you hear an objection around status quo, it's really an opportunity to go and think about where you haven't established the need and how to establish the need. And once you're able to do that, you can actually increase the win rate. What happens very often when the customer is giving you a polite, "Oh, this is great, let's stay in touch," is that they haven't yet bought into whatever promise that you're selling to them, and therefore they are going to be happy with the status quo. But the biggest win is to get them to question the status quo and to make sure that the need is established. Okay, so as salespeople, we always get advice on all the things that we should be doing. So I thought, as a holiday gift, I would give you all a few things that you don't need to be worrying about, because there's already too much to worry about. So the first one here is talk to listen ratio. I'm sure all of us have been told that, hey, you speak too much on your demos. You really, should be asking more questions, or you really should be spending more time building rapport. So here is what the data says, right? We broke up, talk to listen ratios into low TLR, which is what a lot of people would consider desirable, where you're talking for less than half the time, and high TLR, where you're talking for more than 65% of the time. And here we go. There's actually pretty much no difference in the win rates across whatever is the talk to listen ratio. And I think this again just goes on to show that it's not just about the high level numbers, right? You really need to be contextualizing your behavior to the situation. Of course, if you just go on a long monologue for 30 minutes during the demo with no engagement, very likely the person on the other side is sitting and watching Squid Games and has put you on mute. So it's important to make sure that the customer is engaged, but there's no magic number on the talk to listen ratio. The second one is next steps. And I know, a lot of managers like to manage on next steps. But what I'm really talking about here is the fact that, salespeople have gotten better at this. And across all of the calls that we analyzed, 91% of the calls had a discussion around next steps. But what this means is, one, salespeople are already doing this really well. Two, there wasn't a significant difference, in terms of conversion rates where next steps were mentioned or not mentioned. So if I was a sales manager, what I would recommend is don't just, look at absolute hygiene on next steps. It's probably something that's too basic today. Instead, focus on what type of next steps, when are they discussed, what is the buy-in that people are getting for the next steps. And one thing that we've learned from the data is that if you can actually get your prospect to bring up the next steps before you do, that is a sure shot sign of them being engaged and interested in the buying process. Yeah, and this is the last one. So this is the one secret that can actually double your win rates. And if you're not already doing this, I would highly, highly, highly recommend you go and start doing this right from today. Setting agenda is easy. It fits across all types of different conversations, and it more than doubles your win rate. Now, there can't be I think anything else that has better ROI than spending those 30 seconds laying it out. And yeah, I've written a few things about why this is my top sales secret, and a good way of actually setting the agenda. But yeah, I would love to hear from folks here on the chat on what are some of your best sales strategies or your go-to secrets, as well as what is a way that you like to set agenda for all your calls. And yeah, the two bonus things that I offered at the start, I've put them in as a QR code. So in case somebody wants to just scan the link and go hop over to the website, you can see a lot more data, a lot more analytics on how different things that we do or we don't do in sales interactions affect our win rates. And yeah, we have a special offer for Accelerate audience. So if you want to go and get stats and analysis on your own sales calls, hop over to this link, and you'll also get a 25% discount when you sign up for Wingman. I'm open for any questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Shruti. Hey, everyone. What kind of questions you got for us? We got some free takeaways, some free gimmies. Most importantly, setting the agenda. I love that one. Personally, I do it frequently. It's like how I second nature start every call. So it's definitely a great best practice, but good to hear that it's validated by the data that you and your team put together. So thank you for that.
Thanks, David.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some questions, okay, from our folks out there in TV land. So one question that we have is AI can predict the customer objections in the future, or future objections? Question mark.
Well, I would say yes and no, right? So it's possible to predict what type of objections a certain category of customers might have, but you probably can't do it for each single customer, right? So maybe you have customers coming in from a particular marketing campaign, and you can kind of predict what are some of the common questions or objections across the users that come in from that campaign, but not at an individual level.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. We also have another comment, more so than a question, in the Q&A section. But this is a great area to get your comment really highlighted, I guess. So Richard says, thanks for the session, Shruti. And I echo that sentiment. So definitely thank you. I will mark that one as answered. And then how important are the influencers and users? A question from Manuel.
So, I haven't pulled data on this, but just based on our own experience, what we've seen is that having good engagement with users during, say, the trial period, if your product offers a trial period, can be a very strong indicator of whether or not you'll win the deal, right? Because what that means is if the users are actually using it, it could reflect a few different things. One is that the need for the product is strong. The mandate from whoever's the decision maker or their manager that they do want to implement the product is high. And thirdly, when it comes to the decision itself, the users will give you a positive rating, and they'll increase your chance of actually winning the deal. But if the user engagement during the trial period is low, it could be a big red flag. On the influencers piece, it's a little bit harder, also because sometimes who's the influencer might be determined by more interpersonal issues, and it's not always so cut and dry. So I'd reserve comments on that one.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Then someone else asked, could you please explain what you mean by setting agenda? So curious, what's your take and approach to setting agenda for a sales call?
Yeah, so the way I like to do it is, and I kind of even put it down here, is to actually let people to basically summarize the fact that we'll be covering, A, B, and C during the call. Are there other things that they would like to include, and what we are looking to achieve by the end of the call? And I think that orientation is really, really important, because what happens is that otherwise, very often, your prospect comes into the call. They might have been pulled into it by someone else. They might not even have full context. And if there isn't an outcome that you've set as a shared outcome at the start of the call, they'll, just kind of use it as, as a Netflix session, right? Like, they're just going to show up, they're going to listen to you, but they're not really going to engage. But if you set it up in the agenda upfront, saying that, hey, at the end of the call, we want to be able to do A, B, and C, and therefore what we'll cover today is this, this, and this. It really changes the tone, and it really changes their engagement.
Yeah, you just answered another question that's been, edging in the back of people's minds. Is Netflix sponsoring Accelerate? You dropped the Netflix plug again. We talked about Iron Man. We've made some other references, but just full disclosure disclaimer for assumed legal purposes. No, they're not a sponsor of Accelerate this year, but we'll be picking up the phone and giving them a call to see about next year for sure. Another point on the agenda setting, Shruti, I just kind of wanted to share, what's worked for me and our team is, not just setting the agenda there at the beginning, right, where you tell your prospect what you're going to tell them, but also recapping at the end of the call, right, where it's like, okay, remember today we said we were going to talk about this, right, and then we were going to lead into that, and for me in the agenda, I always like to plant the seed that we're going to schedule next steps at the end of this call, right, pending interest. Right. Go ahead and let them know we're going to be doing it, and then remind them that they said and agreed that we were going to be doing it, and then we actually do it at the end. So that's just my 2 cents on some best practices there.
Yeah, makes sense.
Excellent. So hopefully that answers that question. And then let's see, we've got 1 or 2 others. Let's see, what do I say to get the decision maker when I clearly know that I'm not speaking with the decision maker? Thank you, Selva. That's a good one.
Yeah. One thing that I've found useful here is to just kind of upfront ask, right? Like, what does your typical decision making process look like? Or one way to do it is to maybe ask, hey, what was the last tool in this space that you all purchased, and how did that purchase process look like, right? So that you're kind of just getting them to not be confrontational about it, or not like undermining somebody, but you're just saying that you want to be better informed, right? And once you have that information, then you can kind of encourage them to invite that person for the next conversation or for the demo. And you can even use that as an opportunity to say, at what stage do you think they should be involved? You'll have a much better sense of what that buying process is going to entail, and so you're not going to be surprised at the end of it.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think one of my biggest takeaways from what you just shared was, being mindful of who you're speaking with, right? While trying to do your best to get access to others in the buying committee for that target account organization without offending them or undermining them or belittling them, right? And so that's one thing to be mindful of when we're talking to people and human beings. Those egos, they get in the way sometimes. But to your point, right, asking what your historical buying process has been like as an organization. Have you been a part of an evaluation cycle before, right? Kind of pick their brain and then, kind of play them up, play to the ego, right? In addition to you, who else would be important for us to involve in the next conversation, right? So that way you're inclusive and you're inviting them to the conversation as well. So thank you. Excellent. All
Yeah,
right.
in addition is an important phrase there.
Okay. Yeah, you like it. Okay, you can use it. I'll let you. And then we have, let's see, another answer here. Or I'm sorry, another question here. Interactivity, engaging questions. In hindsight, we may conclude these factors influenced the closure, but how strong is this correlation? Interesting.
Yeah. So, what we've seen is this can vary significantly, across companies, right? Broadly speaking, I wouldn't say that people should aspire for a magic number. They should really look at it being, an interactive and engaging kind of discussion, right? So there isn't like very often people come and ask for a universal guideline. Is like 9 on 10 on interactivity the gold standard that I should look for, or is 40% on talk to listen ratio, is that going to be the game changer? But a lot of that really depends on the context. Some products are more complex, and your demos are going to be much more one-sided, right? Some sales cycles have much more multi-threading, and you have many more buyers that you need to deal with, and there you're probably going to naturally have more interactivity and lower talk to listen ratio. So it's going to be very, very dependent on your own specific context. So yeah, I would say try and look at the stats of the best performers within your team, and then try to use those as benchmarks to aim for.
Excellent. Well, that's awesome. I'm sure that the questions will keep coming, and we could probably talk to you all stinking day. But well, we've unfortunately got a lot of other great, fortunately and unfortunately, have a lot of other great content and great speakers to get to as well. So what we would like to do is extend a little bit of an extended break for everyone. Maybe you want to grab a quick bite, snack, or other. But more importantly, feel free to share your thoughts on this session. Feel free to tag Shruti and Wingman as well. Hope you don't mind me saying so, Shruti. With Accelerate 2021, LinkedIn, Twitter, any and all of them, right? So get the word out, spread the good word. Do appreciate it. And what we'll be doing is we're going to go from here to the lounge, and we are also going to be opening the booths as well for those of you that might want to hang out and have some questions about the event, about Outplay, or about the weather, whatever floats for you. But with that, Shruti, thank you so much again. Truly amazing, and you all will want to be here shortly. As when we come back, we will be speaking with Alina and Nicholas Vanderberg, and from Chili Piper. So talk to you soon. Thanks again, Shruti. We'll see you all
Thanks,
shortly.
David. Thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.
Absolutely.